Everybody, once again, my name is Emene Ifeanyi, the Vice Chancellor, and I'm a student of artificial intelligence, and I like sharing stuff about artificial intelligence because I personally believe that the world we are going into now, artificial intelligence will be the key driver of the future because it will eliminate a lot of jobs and it will also create a lot of jobs. I was looking at a research that Ernst & Young released last week, and they estimated that about worldwide, about 400 million jobs will be destroyed by artificial intelligence, but it will also create about 500 million new kind of jobs that are not currently existing. What this tells us is that, this morning my daughter asked me, "Dad, you read pharmacy, how come you don't want to open a pharmacy?" I said, well, it's because of artificial intelligence. It has destroyed the pharmacy as we know it. So that's why I'm trying to create a new job for myself. So sometimes if we don't prepare ourselves well now and learn how to use all these platforms, it means that we are clinging on what we are doing. We might not get to where we're supposed to be. That's why today we need to learn how to use all these platforms very well. And we've brought somebody all the way from Canada, the person of Engineer Chijoke Onuchukwu. He has done a lot of tell us about your work experience, your journey, because the companies you worked in are just so numerous and wonderful places that a lot of us in Nigeria will just play guy. Just give us one of those companies. We don't want to jump from place to place because working in one of them is enough for us. So speak to us. And before it starts, you see, we have talents in Nigeria that can help us. Last week we had Professor Cosmos, he's a Nigerian. Today we are having Engineer Chijoke, who's also a Nigerian. So we want to tap into this power of Nigerians in the diaspora to help us rebuild our country. Because they can also make their contribution via this platform. Chijoke. So over to you, and nice seeing you again.
Yeah, thanks VC for that generous introduction, and I am very glad to be here. I'm excited to share knowledge with all of us. We are all enthusiasts, we are all learners, and I hope this will be interactive. It's not supposed to be a lecture, it's supposed to be a sharing of knowledge between me and all of us. So I would just mention that in the last 5 years specifically, I have been embedded in technology solutions, digital transformation, which is about how to enable organizations to move their business outcomes, to the top, get the best in whatever are their outcomes that they want to drive, okay? Profitability, customer experience, whatever it is, using the top-notch digital technologies. So that's digital transformation. That's where I have been playing in the last 5 years. And one of the notable companies I've worked for, which most of you or some of you may know, is Salesforce. And Salesforce is also one of the leading enterprises that are trying to use artificial intelligence to make a difference. And one of their products in this AI space is called Agentforce. So where they use AI assistants to enable organizations to handle customer service, sales coaching, and numerous things. So let me leave that at this point so that we can go into the discussion of today. Okay, if I have a go ahead, then I can proceed.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. All right.
I want to acknowledge one of our big ogas here, Dr. John. Dr. John is senior lecturer from the University of Nigeria. I just want to acknowledge your presence. And some of our other, I can't take everybody, but I just saw his name pop up and I just want to acknowledge him. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. John, for attending. I will share my screen and confirm, please, if you can see. What can you see?
Yeah, you can see a Word document, the buzzword ChatGPT came from there.
Okay, that's not the one. Just a moment. Okay. Sure. Okay. So what do you see now? Do you see the two sides screen? Unlock the power of generative AI.
Yeah.
Can you see? Okay, good. Right. So
yes, we can.
Okay, great. So the main topic of today is prompt. So hopefully we will learn by practicing. I do not intend to discuss the theoretical fundamentals, but we will learn by actually using these things. Okay, so it's one of the best ways to unlock the power of generative AI. And what actually is generative AI? I don't know if there is anybody here who hasn't heard about ChatGPT. Is there anybody who has not heard about ChatGPT here? No? Okay, which is good. So generative AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that is becoming a buzzword today because of the disruption it has caused in the entire ways that organizations, individuals, and so on are doing things today. So what is unique about generative AI is that it has the ability to generate new content. So what do we mean by that? The traditional artificial intelligence can look at data that you have and maybe predict something. If you have data about patients who had a particular illness based on a lab test, you have 1,000 patients, they went through this lab test and some are positive, some are negative. And a traditional artificial intelligence can look at the data, and if you have a new patient, without going to test, it can predict for you based on symptoms if that person would have that illness or not. But generative AI can create its own data entirely, which means I can ask a question and it generates answers. Okay, so this is the thing that makes generative AI very remarkable, because the fact that it can generate content means that it can be used for many applications. You can use it to write essays, you can do marketing articles, you can generate videos, audios, for whatever you need to do. So now, let's say we were maybe, I don't know how many years back, 20 years back or 30 years back, and we wanted to understand the role of a teacher. We would go to maybe Michael West or Oxford Advanced Learners English Dictionary and say teacher, and it will tell us a person whose job is teaching, especially in a school. Now, this is static content, which means unless it is updated maybe after 5 years or whatever, this dictionary has the same description for a teacher. But now, let's jump into dynamic and conversational, content. Now, I'm going to use ChatGPT as a proxy for generative AI. And like you all know, I heard some discussions. There are many models. It's not only ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is the most popular. Okay, I'll use it for this training as the proxy. Whenever I say generative AI, I'll pretend that ChatGPT is our representation of generative AI. So if we ask ChatGPT the same question about describe a teacher, okay, then we will see that the answer could be dynamic. It's not going to stick to one thing, okay, but we will try to describe something for it. So I'm going to put a query or instruction to ask ChatGPT to tell us the role of a teacher, and this is what I've done. Can you see the screen of the ChatGPT prompt? Can you see this area?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we have said to ChatGPT, describe the role of teachers. Explain so that a 10-year-old would understand. So when we do this, it generates, some content and answer to the question. Okay. Now, this is how it's different from a static dictionary. I will extend the conversation. I can make it conversational and say, this time around, I want you to explain the role of a teacher, but to the understanding level of a university graduate, and we'll see what will be the difference. Okay, so I've done that. If you compare the two descriptions, you will notice something. In the request to explain to the level of understanding of a 10-year-old, the description is very simple. Okay, it's simple. Teachers are people who help you learn new things every day. If you look at all the words here, all the words are mostly simple words. But now that we have said, explain to the level of understanding of a university graduate, then if you look here, you'll be seeing multifaceted facilitators, okay, socio-emotional. There's a higher level, pedagogical, the grammar, the vocabulary has been moved some, a few notches higher. So, which means that ChatGPT or generative AI can understand context, okay? Now, it's that prompt, this thing that we've just put here is the subject of our interaction today. How do we get value from generative AI models? The models are already there. They have immense capabilities. There is a seat of knowledge or seat of wisdom. But how do you extract that wisdom or knowledge? You must do something. And that's the reason why we're here. If you look at this illustration, maybe somebody may understand what's happening here. This is someone who has gone to an oracle. In our traditional settings, we would have like consulting an oracle to tell you about your prospect in business or one thing or the other, so that you know if you should commit that 1 million naira or whatever to that business. So this person goes to the oracle and say, what can you tell me, the great oracle? And the oracle responds, what I will tell you depends on the question you have asked me. So the import of this is that what you can get out of that seat of wisdom, that oracle, that generative AI model that knows a lot, depends on how good you have asked your question. And that question or instruction is the prompt, and is the reason why we're here today. Okay? So, and this goes further to just emphasize that if you don't have good instructions or questions, the answers you get might not be the best that you expected. Okay, so now an analogy. I know some of you watch football, and maybe somebody will help me in the analogy that I'm going to put forward. Imagine that you have a football manager or a coach, and in the team there are star players everywhere, but that football manager has not been able to win a trophy in the last 15 years. I don't know which football club fits to this. Is it Arsenal or I don't know. I've not been watching for a while. So, but that's what it is. You have the seat of wisdom, you have the resources, but you've not been able to extract that value because you have not done something. You have not probed it. You have not made the right request. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is to just go further and ask more questions to see what the answers we can get. And after then, we start to dissect the composition, how a question, a good prompt, what are the ingredients of a good prompt, okay? So let's do one thing. Let's give it one more prompt just to see how. So the essence of what I'm doing now is for everybody to know how to prompt. The next thing we're going to do is, we've seen why we prompt. We need good answers. Then we're going to treat what is the best way to prepare prompts that will give us the results that we're looking for. So now, let's say we are still interested in football And we said to the model, you are an expert football analyst and a pundit. So describe the winning moves that Ademola Lookman may exploit to convert goals in a crucial game between Atalanta FC and Chelsea FC. Now, the last statement here says, stick to the facts. There's a reason for this. So by the time we move into the ingredients of a good prompt, you understand the reason for that last sentence, which says, stick to the facts. So if you are an ardent football follower and you know who is Ademola Lookman, if you read through this, you will instantly discover that these moves are very typical of Ademola Lookman. Okay, so but now if I'm a football pundit and I need to give people, some tips so that they can make their stakes, they might not have all the time to read, this full page. So I can go ahead and say summarize. Okay, and it gives me, quick kind of bullet point kind of. So the people can quickly look at it and say, I believe this. This is typical of Ademola Lookman. So now we have seen how to prompt. We have seen the reason why we should have good prompts, because we need the best answers so that we can use it for whatever we want to do. Now, let's go on to what are the ingredients of good prompts, so that whenever we are prompting, we are typing in prompts, we make sure we put all those ingredients so that we can get the best answer. So basically, if there is a good way to do something, it means that there is a not so good way, right? So if we put some prompts, those prompts could be weak. Like if I go to the model and say, tell me about Nigeria, it's a weak prompt because it didn't give the prompt, the model, some, robust instructions. So if we even put this here, sometimes the model can even advise you. So if we do this, okay, so it's so it gives you something broad, right? But if you are writing a paper, you're a historian, you probably have a focus of that your paper. It might not just be about tell me about Nigeria, okay? It might be political and economic challenges since independence. So it's better to be more specific. So if we use this prompt now, the one that's is more specific, it will generate something that narrows into your area of focus, right? So and it will be more trimmed, okay? So let me see. So try to generate something more focused, more specific, and that is most likely going to give you what you're looking for, okay? So that's the reason why you need to know the ingredients of a good prompt. So if you look at this one, you see that you focus on the political, economic challenges, give some background. Now, what are the ingredients of a good prompt? So a good prompt is always good to have a persona, okay? What is a persona? Or a persona is to give the prompt a role that it's going to play, okay? If you do that, it helps the prompt to understand what it is supposed to do, okay? So I will use a comparison of 3 prompts or 4 to show what persona, how the persona can change the output, the response. So we're going to tell the prompt to do a story about the economic and political and economic challenges of Nigeria, assuming 3 different personas. The first one, we are going to tell the prompt, the model, that it is Chinua Achebe. Okay, so Chinua Achebe, you are an expert novelist and acclaimed writer. Chinua Achebe, write a short story about the political and economic challenges of the country Nigeria. Restrict to not more than 1,000 characters. Stick to the facts. Okay. Now, let's see. So now what you'll be watching out for is the style of writing. Okay, if you have ever read Chinua Achebe's any of his novels, compare the style of those novels to the style you see here. So now we change the persona to Wole Soyinka, and if you have read Wole Soyinka, look out for style. So the import of this is that the persona you tell the model that it should take can determine the style of the output. Okay. So if you have read Wole Soyinka, he is more poetic. He writes like a prose. The last one we're going to use is Chimamanda Adichie. And if you have read Chimamanda too, you will see that her style is more conversational, like the street talk. Okay. See how she starts. So there's a style of storytelling that you can recognize for each of them if you have read each of them. So this means that for good prompts, it's good to tell the model what role you want them to take. If I want to research about artificial intelligence, I can tell the model you are an expert in artificial intelligence. So he knows the role he's taking. If I'm doing something about education, I can tell the model you are a professor of history, you are a professor of medicine. So it takes that role and takes all the knowledge associated with that role so that it can offer the best insights as per that role. So the other ingredient is it should be clear. You have to be clear about the instruction. Okay, so if you look here, we told the model what role it should. We say write a short story about what. This topic is very clear: political and economic challenges of the country Nigeria. So be clear about what you want. So the context, okay. So the context is tell it. The background is it going to tell you something about medicine, about history, about pediatrics? So be very specific. Okay, so now if you look at in terms of clarity, if we say tell me about Africa, it's not as clear as provide a 300-word overview of the political landscape in Africa, focusing on the recent elections in Nigeria and their impact on regional stability. This is very specific. Okay, and if you look here, you can also see word limits. Word limits, is also good if you are expecting a page, 2 pages. So you can instruct and it will obey that word limit. Okay. So in terms of context, if you go and say discuss technology in Africa, this is a weak prompt. Okay. But if you go and specify a bit more, discuss the role of mobile technology in transforming communication in rural Africa, particularly highlighting the impact of mobile banking services in Kenya or in Nigeria and their influence on economic. This is very, very, specific. It's well understood. The prompts will give you a better answer that will suit what you're looking for. So now, what format do you want this to come out? So you say explain African culture. It's not as strong and information about the style you should use as when you say write a dialogue between 2 characters. So if we use this write a dialogue between 2 characters, it will represent the output as a dialogue. And so if what you want to represent is in the form of a dialogue, you see, so it has picked 2 different people, and now it's representing the story as a dialogue between 2 people. So the way the output will look like depends on what your prompt instructions are. Okay. Now, length. We talked about length before. Length might be very important. If you don't want a very lengthy thing, you specify the limits. Okay. So here you see the 500-word essay is instructing the model to restrict to 500 words. Okay. It might be less, but not more. Okay. Now, an important one I want to talk about is use of facts. So, there is what is called hallucination. So, as good as generative AI models are, they can hallucinate, which means they may creatively talk about something that's not factual, because maybe that area, the model has limited data on that area, okay? But it can get creative and fill the gap with what is not factually true. And because of that, in your prompt, it's important to have guardrails, things that will prevent the model from hallucinating. So, but what we are going to do first is to ask the model to show us examples of how it can hallucinate. Then we will talk about how to put guardrails to prevent against hallucination. So let's put this prompt to tell the model to generate content showing hallucinations, okay? And this is to be used for teaching students about the possibility of hallucinations by generative AI models. So we have told it to use a story about the financial crisis of 2007 and create that as the context of the story is going to give us. Okay, so let's see. So what's going to happen is that some things here will be false, okay? So some things here will be false. So let's see, say in the hearts of Wall Street, a financial analyst, let's see. Suddenly, Federal Reserve announces shift to fantasy economics and stock markets. So, some of these things are false. Like this statement here, never happened. So it can hallucinate. So what you can do for good prompts to prevent hallucination is to tell it to stick to the facts. Or, if you saw some of the prompts we used before, we said stick to the facts. Or you can tell it, do not generate content if for anything you don't have factual data about. So that will prevent it from creatively filling in the gap with non-factual information. Okay.